You are at a gathering, not a dramatic one, the ordinary kind, a table, some conversation, the mild social hum of people who know each other well enough to be comfortable. Someone says something you do not agree with, not something monstrous, something small, an opinion, a judgment, a casual assessment of a person or a situation. And you feel, briefly, the shape of your own contrary thought. You know what you actually think. You are about to say it, and then you do not. You nod, or you stay quiet. Or you find a way to reframe your position into something that creates less friction. The moment passes, the conversation moves on, and you have been rewarded, not explicitly, but in the currency of social ease. No tension, no awkwardness, no risk of being seen as difficult. The room remains warm, and you remain welcome in it. This is not a story about cowardice. It is a story about something more insidious. Because the choice you just made carries no obvious cost. It was one moment. It was one small softening. It was nothing, except that it was not nothing. And the Stoics knew exactly what it was. The first teaching. The opinion of the crowd is not a compass. It is a current. Cleanthes, who succeeded Zeno as head of the Stoa, and who carried the philosophy through decades, with a discipline that was almost severe in its consistency, left us with a fragment that cuts directly to this problem. He understood that the social world exerts a constant, undramatic pressure on the individual, not through threat or command, but through the simple fact of reward. Agreement is rewarded. Friction is not. Likability is useful. Distinctness is inconvenient. The crowd does not need to be hostile to reshape you. It only needs to be present, and to make its preferences clear through the small lie. Daily signals of approval and disapproval that accumulate over time into something that functions like a second conscience, one that has nothing to do with your actual values and everything to do with managing the room. Cleanthes did not reject the social world. He lived in it, taught in it, worked within it. But he made a distinction that the Stoics treated as foundational, between the judgment of others, which is outside your control and therefore not your business to serve, and your own considered judgment, which is yours alone to maintain, and which no amount of social pressure has any legitimate claim upon. When you begin to use the crowd's approval as your navigating instrument, you are no longer steering, you are drifting, and the destination you arrive at will be one the crowd chose for you, not one you would have chosen for yourself. The second teaching. Every softening that goes unnamed becomes a new default. Epictetus was precise about this in a way that makes it uncomfortable to dismiss. He observed that the self is not a fixed object that remains intact regardless of how you behave. It is in part a product of habituated choice. What you do repeatedly becomes what you are. What you practice becomes your character, not what you intend, not what you believe in theory. What you actually do in the actual moment when the actual pressure arrives. This means that when you soften your opinion once to be liked, you have not simply made one small compromise. You have practiced softening. You have rehearsed the movement away from your own judgment and toward the preferences of the room, and the next time is fractionally easier. The time after that, easier still. Epictetus would have said, this is not a social problem. It is a training problem. You are training yourself systematically through repetition in the ordinary conditions of daily life to locate your values in the reactions of others rather than in your own interior. And the result, accumulated across months and years of this training, is not a person who is liked. It is a person who is legible to the crowd and opaque to themselves. The mask, worn daily, does not stay on the surface. It migrates inward. And at some point, the performance becomes the only face you can find. The third teaching. Cato did not manage his reputation. He managed himself. Of all the figures the Stoics held up for study, Cato stands apart in one particular regard. He was not especially interested in whether people liked him. This was not because he was indifferent to others. His record of public service was exhausting in its consistency. It was because he had made an early and firm decision about what his actions were to be calibrated against. Not applause, not popularity, not the shifting assessment of people whose own judgment he had no particular reason to trust. His own standard, examined and maintained, was the only court that mattered. The consequence was that Cato was frequently unpopular. He was seen as rigid, as difficult, as unnecessarily severe. People who wanted the room to remain comfortable found him an inconvenience, and he accepted that entirely, not with resentment, but with the calm of a man who understood that the desire to be universally liked is not a virtue. It is a vulnerability, because anyone whose approval you need owns a portion of your behavior, and the more people whose approval you require, the smaller the portion of your behavior that actually belongs to you. Seneca made this point with his characteristic directness. He wrote that the person who tries to please everyone ends up being no one, not from any dramatic collapse, but from the gradual subtraction of everything distinctive, everything honest, everything that was actually theirs in the process of accommodating every possible audience. What remains is not a person, it is a service. The fourth teaching: being known is not the same as being liked. Musonius Rufus pressed his students hard on this distinction because he understood how easily the two become confused. To be liked is to be approved of, and approval is a response to the surface you present. It is responsive to what you perform, what you project, what you arrange for the room to receive. It can be entirely independent of anything real about you. To be known is something else entirely. It requires that you actually be there, present, consistent, distinct, so that there is something to be known. And that requires a prior commitment to remaining yourself in conditions that are designed, however gently, to make you otherwise. Musonius was particularly interested in the daily conditions of this discipline, not the grand test, the small one, the meal where you accept less than you want rather than cause inconvenience, the conversation where you say what you believe rather than what will land well, the relationship where you are honest rather than agreeable. These are not dramatic acts. They produce no applause, but they are the actual material of character, the practiced, repeated, daily refusal to sacrifice yourself on the altar of social ease. The person who emerges from that practice is not necessarily liked by everyone, but they are known, and they know themselves. And the Stoics considered that a more significant achievement than any amount of approval, because it is the only achievement that cannot be revoked by a room changing its opinion of you. The fifth teaching: the respect you earn by remaining yourself is the only kind worth having. There is a paradox that the Stoics observed with something close to amusement. The people who are most genuinely respected are, more often than not, the people who least organize their lives around being respected. Cato was admired by people who strongly disagreed with him, because his consistency made him legible in a way that the approval seeker never is. You always knew where he stood, you always knew what he valued. His character was not a mystery, because he had not spent years obscuring it to be liked. Epictetus made the structural point explicit. He said that the person who has nothing to protect, no reputation to manage, no image to maintain, no audience to satisfy, moves through the world with a freedom that the approval seeker cannot access. Because the approval seeker is always, in every room, calculating. What does this person need to see? What will this audience reward? What version of me is most useful here? And all of that calculation is expensive. It consumes the attention and the energy that might otherwise go into actually living, actually thinking, actually deciding, actually being the person you are, rather than the person the room has requested. The Stoic alternative is not indifference to others. It is not coldness. It is not the performance of not caring, which is itself a performance. It is something quieter and more demanding. The genuine decision, made in private, to keep your character as the navigating instrument, to use your own examined values as the standard against which your actions are measured, regardless of whether the room approves, regardless of the warmth or the chill that follows. Cleanthes rose before dawn for decades. He worked through the night to afford his days of study. He did not do this to be admired for his discipline. He did it because he had decided what mattered, and that decision required it. No audience was present. No approval was on offer. There was only the man, the work, and the character being built by the doing of it. That is the image to carry, not the performance of strength for a watching room. The private, unheroic, daily practice of being the same person whether anyone is watching or not. You are in the room again. Someone says something you do not believe. You feel the shape of your own thought. This time, you say it, not aggressively, not to provoke, but because it is yours, and because the practice of giving it away, one small softening at a time, has already cost more than any social friction ever would. The room may cool slightly. Let it. What you have kept is worth more than what the temperature of any room can offer you. If this moved you, comment Temek. The Citadel holds below. It is our sign that you carry the philosophy with you. Subscribe, and I will see you in the next one.